Everyone, welcome to today's session. Today's session is being recorded for the benefit of those who join us late or those who are not able to join at all. And also, we keep a repository of all of the sessions for easy reach of anybody who wants to, rewatch the session. All right. So today's session is on pivot table, but not just ordinary pivot table. It's on Power Pivot. So Power Pivot is another very I would have said it's a new tool, but it's not new. Unfortunately, not a lot of people use it. So it's one of those powerful features within Excel, has been in Excel for like a decade now, and not too many people leverage it. So today we've got the privilege of Tolulope Olowookere being with us to walk us through the value that is in this tool. And I'll try to get out of the way so that you can do the main thing that you've all come to learn. Okay. So this session is brought to you by your BZEdge and MHS Analytics. Your BZEdge is a Nigerian-based Microsoft Excel, Power BI, and financial modeling consulting and training institute. I will share our link in the chat later on. So if you need training or consulting services, feel free to reach out to us for quality service. And we also have our online repository. So it's both for courses and templates. Maybe you want to learn at your own pace, but you don't want to be, you want to learn at maybe your night, evenings, at your own timing. So that's why it's called self-paced. So you pay for the course, you learn at your own convenient time, you take as long as you need to. And also we have templates that you can leverage to, most of the templates are free. I think for now, all are free and you can use them to achieve meaningful, really impactful outcomes for yourself. MHS Analytics is our North American arm. We deliver same services: Power BI, Microsoft Excel, financial modeling, Excel, SQL, and but we this is the arm that services the Canadian market and the US market. So if you feel more comfortable reaching out to this arm of our end of our business, then perfect. I'll also share the link. All right. So our speaker today is Tolulope Olowookere. She is a Microsoft certified trainer. She's got about 5 years experience doing these across different companies and providing different solutions. So today we're going to learn from her. I'll share a uh, LinkedIn link in the chat so that you can connect with her. Okay, so Tolu, we are ready for you. I'm going to hand over the session to you now. Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen. Tolu, if you're saying anything, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much,
All right.
Michael. And welcome everybody. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. Today, as Michael has introduced me already, I just think it's best for me to just start. So the topic for today is creating dynamic reports using Power Pivot in Excel. And as he said, Power Pivot is not a tool or it's not a feature in Excel that people easily gravitate towards because I feel like it's not as popular as other features within Excel, but it's very powerful and there are many things that you would easily do with it, like some form of advanced data analysis using Power Pivot. So without wasting our time, I'll start by sharing my screen and then we'll go on from there. So, okay. Hmm. All right. So I named this file Big Data Analysis with Power Pivot. So Power Pivot is one of the tools that you can use to handle big data. So this is just a brief introduction about me, even though Michael has already said it, so I'll just breeze through this quickly. Yeah, just a brief introduction of what Power Pivot does and how beautiful it is or how incredible it can be. I can explain Power Pivot or describe it as a I mean, you know how good pivot tables are already, how you can easily do some quick data analysis with pivot tables. But with Power Pivot, the limitations that pivot table has is that you might have to create multiple pivot tables if you have multiple data sets. But with Power Pivot, you can have multiple data sets and create relationships among them and create a proper report with all those data sets. And creating those relationships is just simply what the fancy word for what we call data modeling. So where tables speak to each other, tables are related with each other. That's what data modeling is all about. So here are some of the benefits of Power Pivot as I earlier mentioned. It helps us to create multiple pivot tables from multiple sheets or multiple data sets. And the data is usually stored in Power Pivot model and not necessarily in Excel. Because sometimes when Excel handles too large data sets, it becomes a bit sluggish, it slows down. But once you involve Power Pivot to handle your data set, because it is built for big data, it doesn't affect Excel in its functionalities. And unlike Excel, there are no limitations to the number of rows, and it can also be used for data transformation with the use of DAX. And DAX is the language that Power Pivot is built on. That's data analysis expression. You know how you create your formulas in Excel? Those kind of formulas can be created also in Power Pivot, but we call them DAX this time around. And it enables you to work with multiple tables by creating relationships. So I'll stop here for now. Okay, that's one more. Uh, in this webinar, we're going to learn about some of the functionalities of DAX. We're going to use some functions. We're going to create a calendar table and see some of the functionalities. We'll explore some functions using DAX and even the KPI feature of Power Pivot. So enough of my talking. Let's just hop right into Power Pivot. So I should share what's it called? A link. I'll open my Excel. So in order for us to follow through, I'll share the link to the file in the chat box. Just give me a minute with that. I thought
Tolu, we don't hear you anymore. And if you need help with
yes, I'm
sharing.
here. I'm here. I'll just drop it in the chat.
Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you. So you can use this. I just dropped it. Then we should be able to follow through from there. All right, so I just opened a blank Excel. In the the folder I dropped, there are 3 files. I can give us some time to.
Your screen is also not sharing.
Okay.
I think it has stopped.
Sorry. All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, good.
All right, okay. So in the folder I shared, there are 3 files there. It's a fictional company. I will sell some treats, mainly banana bread, and we just want to know how much revenue we're making over a period of time. But the thing that's peculiar about this our company is that our fiscal year of operations is not like it doesn't follow the normal financial year. So our first quarter starts from April to June, and the last quarter is January to March. So that's one of the things I would like us to explore using calendar tables within Power Pivot. So if you don't have Power Pivots, as you can see on my screen here in your ribbon tab, you can go to the File tab, then you go to More and Options, and then under Add-ins, just look for add-ins. You should see Power Pivot for Excel. You can see that the type is a COM add-in. So at the bottom here, you see there's a drop down and then you choose bottom add-ins and you hit go. So once you do this, you see all the COM add-ins available to you, and then you just have to check the box that says Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel, and then you say okay. And once you do that, you have the Power Pivot tab over here, and it has all these options for you to explore. So you can see this section that says data model and manage. So it's at this point that you can explore what Power Pivot is really about. All these other features like measures, KPIs, add data to model, detect relationships, they're also very important. So without too much talk, let's just go on. I just hit manage, and then it will open the Power Pivot window, which looks similar to, I would say, Power BI, similar to Microsoft Excel also. So if you're familiar with those tools, it shouldn't be new to you. Anyways, so we need to bring in our data. The data set is what I have shared, so I'll just go to the one I have on my own system. It's an Excel file, so you have to click on from other sources, and then you can choose. See, there are so many sources you can also connect to, like connect to your data source. So we're going to use Excel for the purpose of this webinar. Then I'll click on browse because it's asking for the Excel file path. So when I hit browse, I'll just go to where it is on my system. So it's under my downloads in this folder. There are three files there: products, customers, and others. So I'll bring in others first. Others is it's like the fact table, and the other two are the dimension tables. I'll explain why. So we have to check this box that says use first row as column headers. Then you click on next. Then if you want to, you can preview the file just to be sure that what you're bringing in is what you want to see. And once you're sure of it, you cancel and then you say finish. So we brought in the first one, then you say close. All right, we'll do the same process to bring in the other two. So from other sources, then you scroll down, you should see Excel, then next. Then the next one I'm going to bring in should be the products. Then I say, okay. I will make sure that I use the first row as a header, first row as column headers. Yes. Then I say next, and then I say finish. All right. Then I close. I'll bring in the other, the last table, and that will be, I think, for customers. It's like my customers table. So customers, then I say, okay. Use first row as column headers, then I say next, then I say finish. Then I close. Okay. So I have the three tables here, but remember what I said at the beginning, that the kind of financial calendar that we run in this organization is one that the beginning of the year starts at April and ends in March. So I will need us to create a calendar table. So if you're familiar with Power BI, you know you need to use you can either use Power Query to create your calendar table, or you can use DAX to create your calendar table within Power BI. Any of them is perfect, just what you're comfortable with, and maybe when you are conscious about the size of your data model, it's preferable to create it in Power Query. So in this case, to create a calendar table, you just go to the Design tab in Power Query, then you see this portion here that speaks to calendar. So there's date table and mark as date table. So if you had brought your date table directly, maybe from Power Query or somewhere, you can just mark the date column as date table. But since I don't have a date table here, I'll create it from scratch. And I just click on date table and I hit new. So once I do that, a new table will be added. It has even named it. If you look towards the bottom of the screen, you can see that I have four tabs: orders, products, customers, and calendar. It's once I create this calendar table that I have a new, what's happening? A new column called calendar. I don't know what this. Let me go to calendar. Right. Let me just create it over again. Just delete what I have, then do it again. Sorry, my system is hanging. Okay. So I just click on date table and I hit new. And I should see a new what's it called? Tab open up, and the date table will be automatically created. It might just take a while, 10 seconds, and you should have something like this. All right. So you see, it automatically creates it for us. If it was DAX we were using, we might have to start typing the DAX either using calendar auto or the calendar function to create the date table. But with this, it has gone through our data that we've imputed or that we've brought into Power Pivot, and it has gone through the dates in the calendar that we have, and it has seen that 2019 is the earliest date, January 2019, and the latest date is I think it's December 2020. So let me just be sure. The latest date should be 31st December 2020. So it has given us a full calendar for all the dates. But remember that our fiscal year starts in April. So to do that, we will just have to adjust this calendar table to suit what we usually work with. So if you click on any of the columns, you can see in the formula bar that the year is gotten from date table, just like we usually doing with DAX in Power BI. The month is gotten from the date. The month name is also gotten from date using the format to bring out MMM. So if you want to even shorten it, maybe you don't want to see January in full, you can reduce one of the M's and need to change it to Jan, Feb, and the rest. It has given you month, year, it has given you day of the week, and day of the week number and day of the week name. And if you don't want the full name, you can also shorten it. And that's fine. So I'll need to add some other columns. By doing this, we are creating calculated columns. That's using DAX to create additional columns. And the first column I would prefer want to create now will be for quarter. From this calendar table that it has created for us automatically, it looks nice, but it really is not robust enough to cater for every company or every fiscal period. So in order to do this, we have to create a new column that we'll call the quarter column. So for this, I'll just call this, double click on the add column to call it quarter. And when I was researching about this, I found out that you cannot use, maybe there's a new way, but with what I found out, you can't use the normal formula of quarter as you usually use in DAX in Power BI. So it's not available. So what you have to do here is there's a way around it, and you can just use the round up function. Then we're going to round up the month number. So I just type in month. So the calendar month number divided by 3. And I'm going to round it. I don't want any decimal place. That's why I have 0 there. And then I close my brackets and then I click enter. So this is the quarter for this proper calendar that we have. So it's going to show you, yes, January is in quarter 1, February will be in quarter 2, like that, all to the end. So the formula is it's not so straightforward, but looking at it, you should understand that it's just dividing the month number by 3. So 1 divided by 3 will obviously it'll give you 1 anyways, when you round it up. All right. Then the next one we're going to create now is the fiscal quarter. And remember I said the fiscal quarter, the fiscal year period in this company is one that starts in April and ends in March. So we want our first quarter to start in April, and the other one should start, and so on and so forth. Okay, so to do that, I just rename the column. Then I go to the formula bar, and then I type in, I'm going to use a formula called the if formula. So what's going to happen here is if the quarter of the calendar table, right, is equal to 1, right, give me a 4. I want to have the number 4. So because quarter 1 is usually the normal quarter 1 is going to be our 4th quarter. January to March is usually quarter 1 in the normal calendar, but because of the kind of fiscal year we run, quarter 1 is going to be our own 4th quarter. And if it is not, if value is false, result is false. If it is not equal to 1, what should it give us? It should give us the calendar quarter minus 1. So I just type in quarter to bring up the intelligence. Minus 1. And then I close the brackets. And then I hit enter. All right. So with this, we can see that January is it's giving us as 4th quarter, and so on and so forth. The next thing that will be important for us is going to be the fiscal year itself. So fiscal, I'll just call it fiscal YR, just a short form. And this time around, I'm still going to use the if function. What's going to happen here is that if the calendar quarter, just watch closely, that's the normal quarter of the year, is equal to 1, we want the calendar year to be minus 1. So we want to go back a year. So if the quarter is in 2019, if the quarter is equal to 1, we want the year that it should return to be the previous year. So we want to return the calendar year minus 1. And if not, just return the calendar year for me. So I just pick the calendar year and I close my bracket and I hit enter. So with this, I can get what fiscal year it is. Yes, we are in 2019 in real life or in reality, but the fiscal year is still reading 2018 because we're still in January of 2019. I hope that makes sense. Then the next column we're going to create is for fiscal period. And this one is going to, we're going to use some form of concatenation or merging two entities. I would have used concatenate, but concatenate only allows you to use 2 items. But what I want to see here is Q1 2014, something like that. So this will not work. Instead, we'll need to use the ampersand, that symbol. So what we'll do here is, remember we're starting with Q, so we have to put Q in double quotes because it's text. Then you introduce the ampersand, and then the next thing will be the fiscal quarter. So once I type in quarter, I should see So fiscal, fiscal quarter. Then I'll bring in the second ampersand, and then I'll bring in a dash. Then the next thing will be the calendar year. So quarter what of the quarter Q4 dash the calendar year. The calendar year will be the fiscal year also. All right, then I hit enter. So it's giving me something like Q4 2018. So this is what I want to see. And it looks good. Excuse me. Q4 2018, although yes, we are in 2019, but Q4 2018 is from January to March of 2019. And moving on, we'll have others. So the next thing we'll do from here, after creating this calendar table, if you don't need any of all these columns, you can delete them. It's not necessarily you leave them, but something like this one now, I don't need it. So I can delete it. Just hit delete on my keyboard and it deletes it for me. I just want the most important ones to be here with me. All right. So I'll go back to the home tab and then I'll explore all the other tables one after the other. So I have the others table. This is like our fact table. Is the largest. It has a lot of rows. Then I have these are where all the others are recorded. Then we have the products table. These are all the products we are presently producing and selling. Different types of chocolates or sorry, what's it called? Banana bread. We sell about 1,500 to produce one, and we're selling it at 3,500. Although our profit margin is not so large, maybe it's because we are doing it with a lot of love and not necessarily for the profit. But anyways, then these are the customers we have. All this data is fictional anyway. So these are the ID, these are names of the grocery stores or supermarkets that we patronize or that patronizes us. This is their address, and this is the state they are located within Nigeria. So on, this is my calendar tip. All right. At the beginning of this class, I mentioned that one of the benefits of pivot table is that you can create relationships amongst your table. If you were using ordinary pivot table, excuse me, one of the benefits of Power Pivot is that you can work with multiple data sets or multiple tables within one pivot table. But if you had to do this with ordinary pivot table, you have to create pivot tables for all of these tables individually, and that wouldn't make sense. So how do we make all these tables speak to each other, or how do we create relationships amongst all these tables? At the top right of Power Pivot, you see there are some options here for view. There's data view, which is where we are currently, and there's also diagram view. So by clicking on the diagram view, you will see all the tables that you are working with. So you have the table name and also the fields of those tables or the column headers of those tables. So remember I said the others table, and these tables can be moved about. So we have product table here, customers table, others table, and then I have the calendar table that I just built. So in order to create a relationship among them, you have to find common columns amongst the tables. So for example, customer ID is in this customer table and it's also in my others table. So to create relationship, you just click on the column you want to create join with, and then drag and drop in the second table. And by this, you have a relationship already created. And this is called a one-to-many relationship. This one here means customer ID appears just once in this table, and then customer ID appears multiple times in this table. So we also do the same thing for products table. So this bread type here speaks to the name of the product. So I know that So let's not confuse others. On the product table, I can see the names. Sorry, on the others table, I can see the names of the product. And the product table, I can also see the name of the product. It's just that the heading is a bit different. So since I know that they contain the same thing, I'll just create a relationship between the two using my drag and dropping. So this does we one-to-many relationship to show you that the product name appeared just once here and it appeared multiple times in the orders table. Then I also need to create a relationship between the calendar table that I created and my orders. So to do this, the column that is common between the two is the date column. So I drag it and then I drop. And we also have created a one-to-many relationship between the calendar table and the orders table. You can see that the calendar table has unique dates. That means they're just appearing once, and then in the orders table, multiple. You can sell a type of bread multiple times, or different types of bread multiple times in a day, so something like that. So that's why the orders table has like repetition. So let's go back to the database. So once we are done with this, the next steps that we need to do is to start analyzing all what we've been doing from the beginning of these places, using DAX and creating what's it called? Creating calendar table, creating relationships amongst tables. So after this, we can go on to pivot tables. That's where we will do the proper analysis. So to do that, you click on pivot table and then hit pivot table here. And once you do that, the dialog box for pivot table would appear, and it's just asking you where do you want to create this pivot table. So I'm comfortable with it being in this sheet, or in this existing sheet, yes, cell A1, and I'm fine with that. So I say okay. Excuse me. So what's going to happen here is that towards the right of your screen, you will see all the tables that we have been working with from Power Pivot added, but they all have this what's it called now? This like a database kind of icon on them, not what you usually see. So this just means that they came from like an external data source. If the table was within Excel and we added it to the data model and use pivot table to like create relationships, you wouldn't see this yellow.
Okay.
I'm
I can
sorry.
see you're
Okay.
back.
I don't know what happened. My laptop just went black, but
Oh,
it's back now.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll just continue from where I was.
Okay. Don't forget to share your screen.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about the breaking transmission. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I was trying to show that this icon you see here, like database, is when you are bringing the data from an external source, or we are connecting to an external data source, not within the Excel you're working on. Okay, so let's start building. So remember we created the calendar table and we used that fiscal period. I want us to explore that. So this is how the calendar table looks like. So the date hierarchy is picking from the first column, that's the date column. And then you also have more fields. So all the other fields that we created and the additional fields in that table, you can find them here. So if I drag this calendar period and I drop it under rows, you can see that it has grouped my data in such a way that all the Q1s came first, then Q2s, then Q3s, then Q4. But instead, I want you to start from 2018 down to 2020, not this way. So what we need to do is to like sort by another column. So there's a trick that we can do to achieve that. So you go back to Power Pivot, you go to the manage icon in Power Pivot, then I go back to the calendar table and I'll include another column to sort. So let me just call this sort being fiscal year, fiscal year, or fiscal period, fiscal period. So I'm going to use this column to sort the fiscal period. So how do I achieve this? I'm also going to use a trick because it's not so straightforward because of the kind of fiscal period we operate. So what we're going to do here is we're going to type in fiscal year, right? Multiplied by 10. So what's that going to 10, right? So it's going to give me something like 2018 0 plus the fiscal quarter, fiscal the fiscal quarter, yeah. So and then I hit enter. Once I do this, what's going to happen here is that I'll have something like 20184. Yeah. So this column now can be used to sort this fiscal period column. So I just click on the fiscal period column, then I'll see sort by column here. Still under the home tab. Then I click on sort by column. So I want to sort this fiscal period column by the sort fis period. So I just pick it up from the drop down and then I say okay. So once I do this, let's go back to Excel. You see that, it has been automatically sorted. So the Q4 2018 is the earliest date and the Q3 2020 is the latest date. So this makes more sense to us. So that's one trick that I think will be good for you to have under your sleeves if you didn't know it before now. All right, so the next section we're going to go into is creating measures. So you can see in this Power Pivot tab, there's something here called measures. You can either create your measures from here or you can create it directly in Power Pivot. So the two of them do the same thing. So I'll explore the two of them. So click on this FX measures here and I click on new measure. Now it's going to ask you what table do you want this measure to be under? What are you going to call this measure? What name would you call this measure? And what exactly is the measure? What formula are you going to use to create the measure? So the first thing I'll create here, I'll do something like a distinct count. I want to know the number of, let me call my measure total customers. So I'm going to do a distinct count, yeah. So distinct count is like a unique count. So just counting only the customers that appeared once in the customers table. So once I type customer, I'll pick it from the customer ID because I know that is somehow like unique to each customer. Then what kind of, you're going to format it in a way. How do you want this to appear? Should it be a number? I agree, it should be a number because we're just counting the number of customers, but I don't want it to be a decimal number. I want it to be a whole number. Yes, I might need separate if they're more than 1,000, then I say okay. So nothing happens, even just okay. It has added it because I was currently on this pivot table, so it has added total number of customers for me as 5. You can also do this or do more even within Power Query. So let's go on. Before we even go on to doing more, what's it called, measures, let's create more calculated columns. Remember I said we're going to use the DAX function called related. So to do this, we here in this orders column we have we have units sold, we have customer ID, orders ID, and the product itself, but we don't exactly know how much we created. If you look closely, you see that at the bottom here, let's say bottom half or bottom 1/3, there's this new column that's been added. New field. It's called total customers, and it's because of the measure we created. So every measure you create will be added at this lower section here. And I chose the orders table, if you remember, that's why I have it here. If I had put it under the products table, it will be here. So if you don't find where you create your measure, when you create your measure, just be sure of the table you are choosing when you're creating it. So as I said, we want to bring in the price. We're going to bring in price. We're going to bring in costs. So price of each unit and the cost of producing each unit. And we know that we have them under the product table. So price per bread and cost per bread. All right, to bring them here, like as calculated columns, just click on the column to add column. You can double click. I'll just call this one revenue. So what's going to happen here? Revenue is price times quantity, right? So if you don't want to bring in the whole price column directly and add it to this table, because I don't see it as so wise, because you're just adding to the size of the data model. So it's better to use the function called related. So related, since you created a relationship between the two tables, remember we created a relationship between orders table and products table using the customer ID. We can create, we can call that what's it called, price now from products table. So to do this, you just type in price, and then from the IntelliSense, you should be able to pick so it's this first part of the IntelliSense is the products. This part you see products, it's just referring to the name of the table, and then price per bread is the column. So this is the column we want to multiply. We want, yeah. Then we close the bracket. So we're bringing in this, but we aren't bringing it alone because we want to save space. Then we say multiplied by the units sold. So you can just type in units sold. So this is the unit sold in the orders table. And then you hit enter. So it's going to do something like price times quantity for each of the units sold here. Might take a while, but shouldn't take so long. So we have this amount. So we're making about 1.1 million, 3 million, 8 million from some items per day. That's interesting. But that's not enough. Let's also bring in the costs now. So to do this, you call this cost. You can just call it cost. Yeah. So we're going to do something like how much it costs to produce each how much it costs to produce or sell each product. So we're going to still use the related again, related. And then we're going to bring in cost. Once I type in cost, the IntelliSense will bring up the cost per bread. Then I close my bracket, and then I multiply by units sold again. So once I type in units sold, to bring it up, the orders per unit sold I want, and then I hit enter on my keyboard. So this is how much we're spending per loaf. Still coming up. Our data set is quite large, but it shouldn't take long here. So for each purchase, this is how much we spent. Next thing that's very important, the metrics that will be important for us will be profit. So I can type here profit, and then I'm going to do revenue minus cost. So that will be easy. I'm assuming that this cost has factored in tax and every other miscellaneous. All right. Slowing. Okay. So we're going to do, the profit is going to be the revenue, right? Subtracted from, or cost rather, subtracted from the revenue. So the orders cost is what I'm going to use. And then I hit enter. So this is the profit that we made for each product. So because the calculated column, it does column-wise calculation. So for each row, everything is calculated. So with this, we've explored the use of the related function and some other functions. So remember that I said measures usually appear at the bottom here. You can create another measure. So we can have something like an additional measure like total profits. So to do that, you can click out like anywhere in this bottom section, and then you go to the formula tab and put your cursor there. Then you can type equal to, and since we want to do total profit, right, we're just going to sum the profits column. We're going to say sum of the profit column. Right, then I close my bracket and I hit enter. So with this, we have our total profits as a figure. You should see it below here. But now, looking at this, you can see that it is not formatted well, and it's even giving you a name that is not so descriptive enough. So instead of having measures one, you can just call it total profit. Total profit. So this is the method of creating your measures within Power Pivot window, or you can create it from the Power Pivot tab. So anyone that suits you, anyone that works for you, it all works the same. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some formatting, some commas here, so that this number will be sensible. Because with this, we can't really tell how much we really made in Naira. Okay, so I can remove the zeros because I don't think I need them. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have the amount we need at total profit. So with this, we could do more and more analysis with this. Then after this, let's go back to Excel. So go back to Excel. I don't need this total customers to be beside my total customers. I don't need this. Instead, I want to see profit for each quarter. So I can see that Q4 2018 is out of the show. It's not in the table anymore because we did not really, our data set did not even start from January 2018. So that's why we don't have any of that here. So I'll just duplicate this pivot table and I'll do Control V. I just copied and pasted, Control C, Control V, and I've pasted pivot table. The next thing I would want to see beside how much we're doing over the years is maybe number of products that we are selling. So it's still under the others table, and it will be instead of this total profit, I'll remove this and then I'll replace it with units sold. And instead of sum, I'll just change it to count. So the number of units sold for each of the quarters. Then from here, you can go on with creating and charts and all this kind of interesting things. Next thing I would like us to explore would be the KPIs. So let me just move this table, Ctrl X, put it here, Ctrl V, yeah. Just move it to the side so that we can explore how the KPI works. So using this first table, KPI, as the word KPI, is key performance indicator, and we usually use it to like a benchmark to know whether we're performing well or not. So with this, you can, the KPI feature is just found here in the pivot table tab, Power Pivots tab. Then you can click on New KPI. So now it's asking you based on what field. Now, is it total customers? This field or value here is the measures that you've created. So in my case, I want it to be profit, right? I'm going to choose the is profit I want to base my KPI on, and then I'm going to choose absolute amount, and I have to change the number that we have here. So anybody that is making below let's say 400 is not really doing well in my case. So 400,000 or 400 million. One, three, 1, 2, 3. Any quarter that made, let me show the zeros. 4. Mm-hmm. All right. So it gives you like an automatic range of the numbers, but you can adjust this. So you want your target to be from that 400, from 400 million, then anything from like 300 should be anything less than like, let's say 300. Trying to adjust. Okay, that's perfect. Then you can choose any of these symbols or icons. It's similar to what you have in like conditional formatting. Then you can hit okay. So what happens now? It gives you this ugly kind of status thing, but that's not what you really want. So if you go back to the other table, you see this total profits KPI that you've created, like a traffic lights kind of thing. Then instead of what you just do is uncheck the boxes and then check goal. Check the status again, and it changes from that minus to the symbols itself. So it's showing us that these are the people. Anything less than 300 is average, and this Q2 2019 we really did not do as we should. So it's something that we can work on. So that's just how the KPI works. You can manage it. That means you can edit it, format it the way you would prefer it to work. I'm looking at my time here and I'm seeing that my time has been fast spent. I don't know if you have any questions, any comments. I think we'll stop here for now. Maybe we might
There's a,
continue in the next
there's a,
week or something. Okay.
there's a question. And just to ask you, assuming you maybe are not running against time, like how many minutes would you have needed to maybe like get to a nice place to stop, or this is also okay to stop at?
Uh, I think this is okay to stop also because using the calendar table and exploring how to work with fiscal year is something I feel is something very important for us to know and work with.
Perfect. Okay. So there's a question from Fabi Temitope. So he
Okay.
asked that what version of Microsoft Excel are you using, and are you using any other app as well? Like, is there other things apart from Excel you have used so far? So it's like a two-part question. Part one is what version of Excel are you using? Part two is
Okay.
in all of these things you have demoed, have you used something else that is not Excel?
Okay. All right. So thank you, Temitope, for that question. So the version of Excel I'm using is Microsoft 365. So the Office 365 Excel, that's the latest version. And that does not mean if you have earlier versions, maybe 2016, you wouldn't have Power Pivot. From the beginning of this class, even Michael said that for a decade now, Power Pivot has been. So with older versions of Excel, there would still be Power Pivot. And the second answer to your second question, if I'm using any other thing apart from Excel, no. unless you mean is Power Pivot external. And no, Power Pivot is not external. But if you have not activated it, maybe you can't see it in your Excel. You just go to the File tab and then you go to More Options. I'll just repeat myself. Under Add-ins, you should see it as in the list here. But to bring it in, you have to check Com Add-ins at the bottom here and hit Go. So with this, you have to make sure that this box is checked, Microsoft Power Pivots for Excel. And once you do that, you have Excel and you'll be able to explore. Sorry, you have Power Pivot and you'll be able to explore the functionalities even within Excel. So it's Excel I'm using. I'm not using any other thing.
Thank you. Any more
You're welcome.
questions from anyone before we bring the entire session to a close? Anyone else have a question that you would like Tolu to address? Okay. In the meantime, I will also share a feedback link that you can use to give us a feedback for today's session. I'm just trying to look for that link. And maybe I'll just sneak in one question for Tolu to. I know she has mentioned it, but maybe many of us did not notice the answer, or it's what just even if you did, maybe it's just worth making us say it again. So Tolu, the question is, what between using the regular pivot table and power pivot, what are those advantages, those things, capabilities that everyone should be aware of as available in power pivot that they might not have been able to make happen, or things they couldn't have done with the regular Excel pivot table? I know you even mentioned the ability to use multiple tables and not just create different pivot table for each unique table. So maybe if you want to expand more on other things, I will just repeat that same point so people eventually get to see where strategically they should explore this power pivot.
Okay. So another important thing where Power Pivot comes in, another important case where Power Pivot comes in is when you're handling large data sets. And maybe for the course of that point I'm raising, maybe I should try out an example. So I have this data set that is very large, that if I try to load it in Excel, it would cut at the end of my whole data sets. So this is the data. I even called it big data anyways. Very large, about 14,000, 146 KB. And then I open it directly in Power Query. I know it's a CSV, and that's why I chose CSV. And it doesn't there's no problem. It doesn't give me any issue. It does this easily. But when you're using Excel on its own, large data sets like that would not suffice. You cannot import the whole data set. And even if the data set's not even getting to the end of the last row in Excel, you would be stuck up with having your Excel lagging, getting slow and stuff like that. So one of the beautiful things about Power Pivot is that you can use it for large data sets easily without bringing the data directly into Excel. If you notice with all I've been creating, it's not like once these things complete, it's not like the data is sitting in the sheets within Excel. So even if I close the Excel workbook and I open it another time, it is still stored in Power Pivot's memory. Like it's stored in like an external place, not necessarily Power Pivot itself. You can see the data is 2 million rows, and Excel has limitation of about 1,000. 1,048,000 rows. I'm guessing. So, it's not even possible to bring in this kind of data to Power Pivot. But with this, you can easily bring it to Power Pivot. If you're using normal Excel, it would be a bit tasking. So that's one point. The other one is also creating relationships amongst the tables. So, like you said, instead of creating individual tables for each data set you have, that means individual pivot tables that don't even speak to each other. You might have to create maybe a separate calendar table, and sometimes you might need those tables to speak to each other to be able to filter through other tables. So you don't have too large, so that your data set is not too large, and maybe you're using VLOOKUP to make sure that everything is in one data set. You can have them separately and utilize optimize your data model instead of having them in just one very large data set. So those are the importance or benefits of pivot table over normal Excel. Sorry, Power Pivot over normal Excel or ordinary pivot tables.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I think
You're welcome.
we can bring today's session to a close at this point. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Tolu, for the amazing session, the walking us through the practical uh, demonstration of all of what you intended to share with us. And to everyone who has joined today, we hope to see you again another time. If you are not part of our main community link, I'm going to share. I'll just share my screen, so I'll show you, and I will also share the link. And because we try to do this weekly, but for some times now, we've been struggling to get speakers every week. It's like everybody has presented session, and to in their head, they've mentally checked it as, oh, we've presented. And it's now looking tricky to find new speakers or find new topics, because it's also not easy for people to come up with topics. So, okay, great. This is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to share. We have a community link. We've got over 6,686 members. So I'm going to share that here, the channel. So we've got another one that's for Power BI. So every week we aim to do one on Excel, one on Power BI. Let me also get out the Power BI link. So for the Power BI one, luckily we've been getting more consistent speakers for that, but like I said, we are not in control of speakers and we are not paying them. So there's little we can do if we are not able to, if a speaker cancels. But if you check our YouTube, that also brings me to the third thing. We've had over 300 sessions. I think I've clicked on the wrong link. YouTube. Yes. So if you go on the YouTube channel, you will see we've got, together we've got over 300 sessions that has happened. You can sign up to the YouTube channel. This particular today session too will be on the YouTube by tomorrow. So the whole aim of these sessions is to bring you high quality content, diverse speakers from around the world. So if I go here, if I even go to the videos, you see that we are always having people, from like all the who's who in this space. I think I've presented at least one on our session on our platform. And the value to you is you're not paying, you're getting a 1 hour session that is typically demo practical oriented. So it's not somebody trying to sell you something, but someone trying to show you in a very easy to follow way how to do all all the analytics things that will improve your skill. And some of these people who have written books, the who's who in when you buy a book, if I go online now and I search for Excel book, Power BI book, the ones that will come up, I'm certain that out of 10, maybe 8 of the authors that you will see, they've presented on our session. So let's take a look at the books that are popping up. Right. This is by, unfortunately, this is not showing me whose name it's. Let's just say I go here. Uh, the problem with Amazon is you need to turn off ebook before you see the ones that are genuinely published. So let's say add copy paperback. Aha. All right. Maybe I take back what I've said. But the popular guys have come on our sessions. I don't recognize some of these names. But these also too don't look like the kind of books I would really buy if I'm except for Dick Koselika and some well-known names. All right, so I'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to point out that the major people that are recognized as experts in this domain, we've gotten a lot of them to present. Alan Murray is the author of a very popular book on advanced formulas. We've got Sam Fisher is also very popular. We've got Nigerians too that are popular and relatable. You could relate to the content more. So just follow us and then you will not miss out. And with that, I'll bring this session to a close. Thank you very much and have a wonderful Sunday ahead. Have a wonderful week. Well, Sundays are ended anyway. Have a wonderful week ahead then. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tolu, for the session. See you all next
Thank you.
week. Okay, bye.
Bye bye.